Volunteering is a selfless act of an individual or group freely giving time and labor for community service or an humanitarian cause. While this practice remains popular in parts of Europe, America, and Asia, it is gradually being embraced by Africans. Every day, volunteers dedicate time and effort to ensure the inclusion of those often left behind, drive climate action, and advance the Sustainable Development Goals, amongst others. Today, December the 5th of every year, is set aside to recognize and promote the tireless work of volunteers around the globe. But can Africa really join the rest of the world to celebrate this day, as the practice of volunteering remains rare across the continent? How do we get more people to volunteer their time, skills, and knowledge for public good in Africa? To discuss this, we have a community organizer, founder of the Accolades Award, and IT infrastructure engineer, Gbenga Owoyele. Gbenga, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So let's shed a bit more light on volunteering as a term in its own right. Could you just explain that to us? What really is it?
Volunteering is basically spending some of your time, your skill, your resources to serve, to add value to other people's life without expecting anything in return, so to say. Of course, some parts of the world pay token to volunteers, but the traditional thing is you don't want to get something in return for it. You want to give your heart to something. It's like the follow-up of what we do. You work for a company, and an extra thing you do, like personal social responsibility, becomes your thing you do after work to add value to your immediate community. So volunteering has been a part of what we do as human beings. Muhammad Ali was reported to have said that this volunteering thing is the rent we pay for living in this world. Wow. You can't actually pay God in cash, but you can pay back by volunteering.
Wow. Okay, Gbenga, I'm a film festival freak. I go to festivals a lot, especially the international ones, Cannes, Toronto, Berlin. And when I do, especially in Toronto, after, what they do in showing different things at the beginning before the film commences, the last thing they will now show to the viewer, to the audience, is to celebrate the volunteers. And even in the hall, everybody will clap along with what has been shown. And that says something to me about the fact that it's a cultural thing. People applaud others who, like you explained, volunteer their time, their skills, their resources even, to support causes. Where are we in Nigeria in terms of volunteering?
Well, we've been doing well. If you go down to communities in Nigeria, Lagos, anywhere in Nigeria, you see that you find people, young and old, doing one thing or the other for their community. What we have not been able to do well is to celebrate them for it. And that's why the number is not growing. Because people who come from family of volunteers and they look back at the life of those who have volunteers over the years in their family, and they don't see something on their shelf to say to show for it. They don't see something in their life to say, okay, this is the return on investment for what dad did or what mom did in the past. Then they tend to be taken aback, like, do I want to still continue this style my dad or my mom did? So what we've not been able to do well is celebrating them, clapping for them, thanking them for creating some time to add value to the community. You see, today we have CDAs in communities, and these are led by people who are adding extra value to the community. They are returning from their work and businesses, and they are still attending meetings. They are still sitting down to discuss how to fix infrastructure issues, even things connected to the Sustainable Development Goals. They are sitting at their table to discuss how to advance it. And sometimes they mobilize themselves up to the level of government parastatals to look for solutions to their issues. If you look at the story of Barack Obama, you go back to that he started as a community organizer. And he wasn't doing it in Kenya, he was doing it in the US and African, you know. So we have it in the African bloodline, but what we have not been able to do well is to do clap for them, is to celebrate them, is to thank them for putting that effort in. And the generation now is looking at it that, is it worth it at all to volunteer, you know? So yes, this generation wants to be seen, you know? So maybe after celebrating volunteers for a decade or a century, then we'll still have to struggle with those that are doing it for the clouds and those that are doing it for other things. But for now, in Nigeria, we have not been able to celebrate them. I can't remember us gathering to celebrate volunteers.
Maybe because we don't know them. Maybe because we've not seen much of, you know.
Exactly. and I think, Gbenga, you're touching on a very important point right here. You're talking generationally, right? And let's bring it all the way there. We live in a generation where there are different attitudes towards pro bono work right now, to start with. You also juxtapose that against celebration and celebrating those people who have offered their time and those people who are doing it for clout.
Yeah.
Now, when you begin to pull those apart, if I were doing it for clout and I still wanted that celebration, but you've also received the work that you wanted me to volunteer, does that in any way affect the bigger picture and on what the message we're all trying to send?
Of course, you cannot completely separate the intentions of people from activity that they do. You know, but we are not God. We are not supposed to investigate to that point of saying, we want to know your intention behind this. Are you doing it for the clout? Or, you know, of course. But when you celebrate volunteers, of course, you have a larger pool of those that are doing it sincerely. So it could be said that it's negligible, those that are doing it for the clout. And in a short time, they will be exposed. Because people who do stuff for clout will get tired along the line because they won't get celebrated every time. You can even look at the entertainment industry. When people don't get award in a particular year that they feel they've delivered, look at what they do in the following year. Some of them either go back to their lockers and just forget about it, while some will go back and say, okay, I want to go and check what I've done wrong to not get that expected award, you know, so that happens. But for us as Africans, we should first of all give it a shot before we now start analyzing issues that come after it, because we have not done enough about it. You know, we have family members who participated in movies abroad, and till tomorrow they frame that part of their name at the end of the movie, and they look at it every day. It motivates that family forever. You know, so, but of course, if you don't have something like that in your room and you wake up every day, it's gone into thin air. You know, dad was a community organizer, mom was doing this in a marketplace or workplace, and in the end, she died and only 20 people were at the burial ceremony. All of that comes back to the table and people feel like they were not appreciated for what they've done. But if we're able to appreciate, then we'll now move to the next stage, because indirectly we are telling those that are not doing anything that there's a reward for volunteering. We are telling them that somehow, somewhere, somebody is watching what you are doing, and someday that deserved accolade will come for doing what you have done. So we have...
So, I was going to ask you, how is this desire to celebrate those who are volunteering, how is it tied to the Accolades Awards that you are also behind?
Okay. It's tied to it because over the time we noticed that some of community leaders, individuals, businesses, groups are giving back to their immediate communities. And over the time, they've not been celebrated by their community. You know, somebody who attends to people's needs in terms of education, somebody who give back to the society, there is little or no thing that you can give to that person. You know, you go to someone and you say there's someone who needs scholarship, and he gives it without investigating further if it is a storyline or something. And at the end of the day, you recognize that he will always do it. Such person you can't give, there's no amount of money you want to give. But of course, when he looks at something in his room, every time he wakes up in the morning and he sees that my name has been celebrated for being humanitarian person of the year in so year, it takes him back to that activity and he wants to do more.
So when is this award holding?
It's holding December 11,
okay.
2021. Next Saturday, to be precise.
Happy, do you volunteer?
I do, but I think this is a conversation that needs to stretch out a little bit, because there are people who want to volunteer just because it's a cause that is close to their heart, not necessarily because they want any celebration or anything. That's another area I would have loved to talk about.
Who also volunteer, especially in cleaning the beaches. You know, now that you mention it, it just came to me. I also know a lot of young guys who volunteer every year for the All Africa Music Awards, you know, making sure that things go right. Maybe they deserve some celebration, etc. True. But then this is something that that is new here, and we commend your effort.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Gbenga. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.